Shawn, first of all, I just want to thank you again for doing this.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. You know, listen, I've been following your stuff for a very long time. I know you've been following me. So it's, you know, it's a real honor so that we are here together on this podcast. And
finally making
man,
it happen.
Finally, yeah. I appreciate it, man.
So look, a lot of people I know you even across Canada. A lot of people in my community have been sort of anticipating this podcast too. Tell us just quickly a bit about yourself. What's your background story? Who is Shawn Kanungo?
You know what? I like to say that I'm obsessed with digital and innovation. I worked for Deloitte for a very long time, playing in that space. And now I want to put some of the proof in the pudding and help operate and scale some companies. I'm advising some companies right now. I'm a professional speaker. I'm also helping Singularity University, Singularity U Canada with a couple things right now. And so for me, innovation is so important, and this is what I want to I want to be able to build a community around innovation here in Canada, and that's what I'm all about, man. Innovation. I'm obsessed with it so much. Like I'm listening to podcasts, I'm talking to people, I'm getting engaged in like the innovation ecosystem. That's what I'm all about.
So obviously you're very passionate. I can tell that just even by your demeanor when you speak about innovation. You also did a TED Talk actually, in the theme I found super interesting, and it was, what would I want my kids to know about innovation, and what would I actually want to teach them about what I see in the future?
So let me give you a background on this. You know, a lot of people talk about, you know, what are we going to teach our kids about the future?
Exactly.
And to be honest with you, a lot of people get really hyped about, you know, things that are working today, like artificial intelligence or data science or big data. You know, all these kind of things, the skills that are needed for the future. In my mind, I have no idea. I have 18-month-year-old, so this is the context. I have no idea what's going to be relevant in the future. To me, actually having the ability to learn, to be hungry, to experiment, to try new things, that is the skill that you need for the future, because you can't predict what technologies are going to be around in the future, because technology gets commoditized so quickly. Do you know what I mean?
100%. So knowing this, right, and I think if you look at, for example, Darwin's theory back in its first iteration, it was, you know, survival of the fittest or the strongest, right? Today, it's the only way you can survive is if you're actually the one who's most adaptable to change.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to position innovation in that way, how can one actually position themselves to be most adaptable in a world that's constantly changing?
You know, I think there's no magic to it. I think it's continuously learning, continuously being flexible and nimble, and not being just held to dogma, and you can't be nostalgic. Like, you got to keep on moving, you got to keep on learning, you got to make sure that you take yourself out of business every single day. That when you're in your organization, try to figure out, how do I actually take myself out of a job tomorrow? And I think that's what we constantly have to be thinking about from an organizational standpoint, and also from a career standpoint. Like what are the things that are going to take my career out, and let me work on those kind of things. Like, if you are an accountant, you should be ahead of what's happening around machine learning, because there's a lot of hype around, will robots take your job? Like, you should be ahead of that.
Even on the legal side, I mean, with AI, for example, they can really automate all the sort of scripts of these regulations, these legal terms, and so that there's really disruption happening in every sector.
Totally.
And I think that disruption you're seeing in the personal self and the professional self, why is that so difficult for people? I think even just being so either specific, you know, being a specialist, for example, that's something that's sort of emphasized, right, in the society, versus being a generalist and being a bit fluid, maybe, and flexible.
Well, I don't know. Let me ask you this question, man.
Sure.
Because everybody talks about being focused versus being a generalist.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have an answer on this, and I don't think we've figured this out throughout history. I'd like to get your point on this. So, should you be more focused, or should you be a generalist?
I think you could be generalist and be focused. And I think the way you do that is you have synergies across everything you do. And so what I really mean is, if you look at, you know, for example, I work, you know, for the TMX group, right? I'm on the sales side, and I work with a lot of private companies.
Yeah.
So my involvement with a lot of these entrepreneurs is what really sparked that encouragement in me to find myself entrepreneur per se. You know, and that's really what sort of drew the motivation to start a podcast, to start my own startup called Bookback, and to actively blog and build my personal brand. But if you look across everything I've been doing, and we talked a bit about this before the podcast, it circles around three things, or what I call my three words, right? Communication, people, impact. And everything I do, it has to circle back to those, you know, foundations. And if they hit on all three, I'm okay with doing it so long as they drive my personal and professional career.
So what's your punchline? Are you focused or are you generalist?
I'm a generalist.
With a little bit of focus.
With a focus in everything I do. So I don't think that you.
Okay, so the way that I want to talk about generalist versus focus is that essentially, if you actually look throughout history, there are. Hold on one second. Let me just. So let me explain what happened here. I had called the previous establishment, let them know that we're shooting something. They were all good with it. I said we're not going to get any patrons in, and they said we need to move. And then we just kindly asked another great coffee shop,
M Squared,
M Squared,
and the Path Concourse.
And they said M Squared said, absolutely, we'd love for you guys to shoot. And please get our logo in the shot. So M Squared, thank you for the coffee. It's an amazing spot. One of the best coffee spots in Toronto and probably in the world.
There you go.
So here we are again.
Thanks, Shawn. I appreciate that. All right. Look, things are going to happen, especially if you shoot a podcast in public, and you got to be ready for these things. And we're still making it happen. We're back. We're ready to go. Okay. So look, we were talking about being flexible in a world where people emphasize being a specialist.
Yeah.
Right now. You're also kind of a generalist in your sense,
yeah.
But you're focusing on a common theme, which is innovation.
Sure.
Did you find it difficult actually being in Deloitte, being a senior manager, working in strategy and innovation, but also venturing out and doing all the other stuff that you were doing, like speaking? Did you find that a bit difficult?
You know what? It was. I think it complemented well with what I was doing in Deloitte. The beautiful thing about Deloitte is that they. The reason why I love working at Deloitte, the reason why I love everything about Deloitte is that they allow you to do whatever the hell you want. And I think for me, it was a blessing. Like, we worked on some of the coolest projects in this country and around the world because our partners were like, yeah, go ahead and try things. And we were able to try things using crowdsourcing and AI and film. Like, we were able to experiment with cool things to do it. And the speaking thing was getting to a point where I was like, at some point it was getting out of control. And right now it's completely out of control in a good way.
Meaning there's a lot of it.
There's way too much. And I wanted to make sure that I was respectful to the clients that I'm with, right? Because you're on a project for 3-6 months. You're actually rolling up your sleeves and working day to day with these clients. And if you're off in the city, it becomes very difficult, right? And so I want to be respectful of that.
That's really cool, man. And one of the things I love about Arnold Schwarzenegger is in his sort of rules to success. One of it.
Just dropped Arnold. Wow,
just Arnold, man, right? Those gains and one of the things,
oh my goodness.
Look at this. Some product placement.
Look at this. This is beautiful.
I gotta get this in the picture, man.
The best Did I mention this is the best coffee shop in Toronto?
There you go.
Amazing. This is great. I'm just gonna take a nice shot of this. This is.
We're rolling, man.
This is beautiful. This is.
Did you get it?
Yeah. It's
you gotta Instagram this. Trust me. When you get a good, nice coffee, it's IG profile.
That is a business owner that understands marketing, product placement.
I love it.
That's what I'm talking
It's so true, man. And I do want to get back to this. I guess I'll get back to the Arnold thing later, but this is super important in the sense of also being sort of flexible and nimble. Like, we came in, no warning. We just came in. You kindly asked, hey, can we do this? And being so open, putting the product placement, actually having good coffee, being a cool place with nice settings. This is what you get out of it.
Yeah, totally.
So I love that. Back to the thing about Arnold. He said, one of his rules to success was you got to sort of break the rules. Right, and now obviously not in an illegal way, but breaking the rules in terms of the status quo, like challenging status quo and doing things differently.
Yeah.
Right, you were kind of doing that, especially I felt that when I was doing this podcast. Working in capital markets, and if you say you have a podcast called Let's Grab Coffee, you're going to get some heads turning, right?
I love that. Yeah.
And not all in always positive ways. And people are going to question what you're doing and why you're doing it and why you're so public on social media and stuff. Did you ever get sort of that form of hassle, and how did you deal with it?
I actually never got that. I'm the type of guy that we just do stuff and ask questions later. I'm not saying that's the right approach every single time. You see, from an organizational standpoint, you see Ubers of the world, right?
Yeah.
They'll sort of bulldoze into a particular region and create market share and get customers without even going talking with policy, working with the right authorities. And I think that sort of bit them in the ass a little bit. For me in my career, like I've always been, let's try stuff first, let's experiment. And most of the people, if you ask people if you ask permission for people to do something, no one's gonna give you permission to do it, right? They'll be like, yeah, but what's the ROI? Is it gonna work? Is it not gonna work? Like, who should we ask? Blah, blah, blah. My opinion is that, and I don't know if it's because I'm from Alberta, we got an entrepreneurial, like wild cowboy mentality.
Wild West.
But for me, it's like, let's see how we can get things done. And I'll give you an example of this.
Yeah.
I was working with my team. We were wanting to talk about how we can bring performance management to the public sector, to the government.
Okay.
And performance management is around how do you track sort of your outcomes and whatnot. And I wanted to make performance management really visual. And at the time, this was like back in 2013, the iPad was really hot. And what I wanted to do was bring, Apple iOS, the iPad, to the government and show them how we could really visualize their performance measures.
Yep.
And I remember being in a boardroom with my team and saying, yeah, that's a really great idea. How do we, that'd be great. And I said, you know what we should do? We should bring all the public sector leaders together. Let's bring Apple together and do this. They're like, yeah, that's a really great idea. And they're like, okay, so how we, but we're not going to get Apple, right? I said, why not? So, well, we probably have to go through approvals and partnerships. I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to call Cupertino and get Apple on board. And so that's exactly what I did. I called Apple, Cupertino, said, hey, from Deloitte, we want to do this thing for the public sector. And you know what? I didn't get to the right person the first time, and eventually I had to get somebody in Canada.
You're pivoting a bit, and
regardless of finally got to the right person. Apple was willing to partner with us. They shipped me a whole bunch of iPads. They helped put their name on the thing, and Apple was an amazing partner for us. And we were able to do these events with Apple, and it's like. And all it just took was a phone call. I didn't have to ask anybody. I didn't do that. Same with getting people for a particular podcast. I remember we were starting a podcast, and I said, what a great idea would be if we got the premium. They're like, Shawn, that's a great idea, but we don't have the contacts right now. We don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, just call the premier and ask him if he wants to be on the podcast. And so for one of our podcasts, we got Prentice, the late great Prentice. He passed away recently, but we got him on a podcast. It's because we called him, we emailed him, and said, hey, do you want to be on a podcast?
Just try it out.
He said, sure. Man, I think people want to ask permission.
Yeah, permission too much, I think, and also like. You were mentioning this before, but actually just executing. Like you can talk
Sure.
about what you can do, and you and I can actually, sort of predict the next 100 years and come up with thousands of things that we can think will happen. But if you don't actually execute today and just make things happen and just do it, the whole Shia LaBeouf thing, I often joke, but just actually do it. But
what
also,
is the Shia LaBeouf?
You ever seen that? It's like it's a video and he's just going crazy and he's like, just do it.
Oh yeah. I've seen there's like a meme around it.
Yeah. So, but that has a lot of depth in certain cases. But also, I think what you've done is have the courage to step outside of what people will place as limits.
Sure.
Right, and even things like, and I'll take your I guess your thoughts on this. But for me, a lot of the things I was doing, I was never really prepared for. Right, like I created a site, had no clue how to build one. Podcast, I literally went on Google just one night because I love podcasts myself, and then I sort of typed it up and I'm like, how do you actually do this? And even in the entrepreneurial space. And so a lot of it, I think people focus too much on timing, or everything has to be perfect and everything has to line up before you can actually jump and take that leap. And I think that's not always the best way to do it. Like sometimes you just have to be scrappy, man.
Totally.
You got to roll up your sleeves and just taste the dirt, go through it, learn as you go, be open, and just fucking grind. What do you think of that? Yeah.
Listen, man. Like I think when we talk about innovation, I could drop you. Like you said, like we could drop you a billion ideas right now. But at the end of the day, it actually comes down to execution and trying things out. And I think you're totally right, man. And I think you're a sort of bulldozer. You're going to keep on going. I'm really excited to see what where you go in your career. And what are you really passionate about? What, by the way, like what really gets you up in the morning?
Yeah, so this is something we were talking about as well, and I want to pose this question to you, but for me, I guess there's two things, from the self or from my personal self is just building legacy.
I love that word.
Like I'm more focused on legacy versus likes. I'm more focused on impact versus being an influencer. You know what I'm saying?
He's dropping bombs.
100%, dude. Because I think like that's what people remember. Maya Angelou, you know, she had a great quote, and she said, people don't remember what you do for them or what you say. People remember how you made them feel. And so I'm building equity through impact, and by changing people's mindset, maybe giving them encouragement, even if it's through a picture, a video, a podcast. Anything I'm doing has to have tangible impact, and if I'm not happy with it being so positive, I'm not going to do it. And so for the self, it's legacy. For my parents, it's financial freedom, because they immigrated to Canada, and we all talk about entrepreneurship. Like they were the real entrepreneurs in my life, dude. They left everything. We had a comfortable life in Saudi. They left everything for me and my sister, you know, to give us a chance at a better future. And so now I feel like I'm indebted, and I owe them, not financially only, but for my mom and my dad, my sister, to look at me and say, look, at least, you know, the sort of the opportunity cost that we put in actually paid off, and what he's doing has meaning, and he's living with a sense of purpose. And so it's more holistic for me, and I think a lot of people don't see that from a superficial lens when they open Instagram and they see a picture, or when they open a video and they see a 2-second segment. Like, you're seeing a demo, you know, but you weren't there for 24 years that came to this segment. Yeah. So
somebody clip this for 2 minutes and then put it everywhere. So that was amazing.
How about yourself?
You know what? I totally agree with you. I think legacy is important, and I want to play for the long term as well. I want to make sure that that I want to make an impact, and not only, you know, within the people that I work with, the clients that I work with, or the city that I'm in, but in the country that I'm in as well. So impact is really important to me. Legacy is really important to me, and I fundamentally agree, man. I literally everything that you said, like, I totally agree. Listen, I love the immigrant sort of mentality. Like, listen, my parents moved to this country, and they gave us sort of everything that we wanted, and you know, I want to take it to the next level. They took all the risk in the world to move to this country, and now they set up a platform for my brother and I to, you know, take it to the next level, and I owe it to them. For God's sakes, they made the risk. You know, I should be able to take it to the next level, and then also for my daughter, and you know, it's really important. And
so that definitely wakes you up, and then gets you out of bed, right? It gets you sort of running, and it sparks that fire. And around that, your passion is innovation. I kind of wanted to ask as well, because you know, we're sort of talking about passion and stuff. One of your passions is innovation and strategy from a macro and micro level. How do you actually define innovation? Like, what does it mean to you, and how do you see it continue to drive the world forward in the next 5, 10 years?
You know, I think it's really simple. To me, innovation is about how do you create value in new ways. That's it. How do you create value in new ways? And a lot of people get caught up with innovation being just like the technology or the product, and I think you can actually create value in new ways, not just through the product or technology. You know, the iPhone is really great, but the reason why the iPhone works is because of the app developer ecosystem. It's because of iTunes, it's because of the relationships, it's because of all the things around it, the customer experience, the actual business model. There's other ways to innovate than just the technology or the product, and you know, that's why I love seeing what people are doing, not just in the technology space, or what people are doing on process, and the cool partnerships and joint ventures that they're making, or how they're designing the organization from a structural standpoint, or what people are doing from a channel perspective, or how they're doing customer service, or how they're doing customer experience. I think that some of the best innovations in the world, and some of the best companies in the world, they've been able to scale and do some incredible things, not just because of technology.
And often I think innovation is sort of simultaneously used with the tech industry, right? And people almost presume like if you have to be innovative, right? But it's funny how it has a positive association. Like, innovation is embedded in technology. And I feel that that's a little limiting for people not in the industry. And there's still a lot of things outside of tech that still have a hold, right?
Listen, I think technology is a great tool. It's an enabler. It actually has the ability to change behaviors.
Yes.
At the end of the day, you know, now we live in a world, because of the internet, because of cloud, we almost live in a drag and drop world where technology is like, it's not even a competitive advantage. It's not a differentiator. If we have the same phone and we have Instagram and we're taking a picture with Instagram, what's the difference between your picture and my picture? There's going to be no difference. Maybe the only difference is that you might have a little bit more creativity or style or design sensibilities. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're still using the same tool.
The outcome.
And today, because of cloud, because you can get the best CRM product in the world, because you can get the best marketing automation, everything is available to us. Go to sharestack.io. You can see what every best technology company is using in their technology stack. What I'm saying is that you can get all the best technology at your fingertips, so it's not a point of differentiation. The point of differentiation is what you do outside of the technology. How do you connect these technologies? So, you know, I think people get really caught up like, oh, we're not a technology company. Well, listen, now because of the cloud, because of the internet, because of all this thing, technology is almost ubiquitous, it's commoditized, and you can get some of the best technology from anywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it seems like the actual definition of innovation has also evolved over the years. Like now,
I don't think so.
We don't say so. Right?
I think it's creating value in new ways. Why has it evolved?
Simply.
Listen, everybody has different definitions of it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people it's just like anything. It's like analytics or like innovation or like artificial intelligence. Like people have their own definition of like what that's all about. I'm not saying that my definition is the be all end all. At the end of the day, like I think you make it. I don't know.
You make it what it is, really.
Yeah, and I think creating value in new ways. I know that's always been the case. Yeah. Whether you are living when fire was invented, to when quantum computing is invented, like I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and then that's kind of where I was heading. I mean, if you look, I mean, say 10, 20, 30 years ago, the focus was more on inventing. Right, it's like what new invention did you create, and then innovating within that invention. And I think what you're seeing today, also, especially in the tech sector, like we can talk about innovation in terms of an app, right? Like oh, did you see the startup? They innovated in this space, like an Uber, for example, right?
Sure.
They disrupted the taxi industry and the transportation model, and they innovated by creating an app that makes it super easy to do that. So it's kind of interesting how we're going to keep progressing within innovation and how we do that within tech or within other industries. I think that's a super cool space.
Man, there's going to be, the world, like, there's so many problems that are unsolved. There's so many opportunities out there. I think the biggest opportunity right now is we're seeing all these individual technologies that are finally converging, and this is what's creating that's going to create all the disruption.
Yes.
Because you have things like blockchain combining with AI, combining with whatever, and I think that's what's causing all the mess.
And I actually want to talk about this too. You said that disruption is really everywhere, right? And you can actually focus on any industry and you can find ways to make it better. You can find things that people have pain points in and so on. How important is it that someone actually knows, like the EQ, right? I talk a lot about actually emotional intelligence and knowing yourself and making sure that what you're doing, whether it's being innovative in any industry, making sure that it's right for you and you actually understand what you're trying to disrupt. Not doing it because it's the new sexy fad like blockchain.
Can I just define this? Like, I actually don't think that you have to disrupt anything. To be honest with you, I think we get caught up in like, oh, we have to disrupt this particular industry. But to be honest with you, disruption is about going into a particular space and then changing the game forever, changing the status quo. You're going into an industry, you're taking away market share from somebody else. But there's also another space where you can actually create net new things that no one has ever even seen before, problems that people know that they haven't even solved.
It's very true.
And I think we get caught up around, well, how do we disrupt an industry? Well, how do you create a new industry?
Yeah.
I always bring up the stupidest example in the world, but it's called, GIFs.
Yeah. Super
Giphy.
smart. Yeah.
Giphy is a $600 million value company. They're the fastest growing tech company in terms of users with 300 million users. Like, they didn't disrupt. It's not like people were like, oh, it's taking away anything. They've created a new language.
Yeah.
They've created a new format in which we send moving pictures to one another. This is net new. You look at Viagra. This is net new. They're not disrupting a previous space where people couldn't get hard. They created a new market. So I think that we get really caught up in around the disrupt or disrupted, but I think, and my thinking has evolved around this as well, but I think you can actually create net new.
And I love that point. There's actually, I was sitting in on a conference, it was the Generation Now conference, Gen Now, and the K-Swiss brand president was talking. And K-Swiss, obviously, as you know, I mean, they've had certain struggles in the shoe industry, and they were competing against giants, right? Nike, Adidas, Puma. And for the longest time, all they were trying to do was compete with the biggest and the baddest and the ones who already had that entry point. And he said this quote, he's like, if you can't be first, be different. And what K-Swiss ended up doing is created a new world, essentially, where they're making now shoes for CEOs and entrepreneurs. Like, they want to become the shoe for the entrepreneur, and the whole brand and the tagline is hustle. You know, and because they figured that I can't compete with Nike on the athletic spectrum. I can't compete with Adidas and Puma with the celebrity status and the lifestyle kind of brand that they have. So if I can't compete in those two verticals, I'm not going to sit, stare and do nothing. I'm going to create a vertical on my own that hasn't been created yet, and that's why they partnered with Gary Vee, and he became the first ambassador.
Yeah.
Like, dude, 10 years ago, if you heard someone say, like, you know, this entrepreneur or influencer has a new shoe line.
Exactly.
That, no, I like. And K-Swiss' site crashed.
And that is innovation. That's not taking away from anything. That is, I wouldn't say that's disruptive or anything. That's creating value in new ways, and
it's creative in that sense.
There you go. It's the innovation.
That's amazing, dude. And so, you know, for you, what sort of segments? I mean, you spent 12 years, right, in Deloitte, leading strategy, innovation. What were some of those learning points? Maybe challenges, things that, because obviously you've consulted multiple clients, various clients, all types of cases.
I think at the end of the day, like, I think the hardest thing when it comes to helping an organization think about innovation or helping them to innovate, it's really the cultural barriers. At the end of the day, it's all people stuff. It's, you know, a lot of organizations legacy infrastructure is there for sure, like, especially a lot of companies in Canada or government organizations in Canada, they're stuck with legacy infrastructure. But at the end of the day, it's just the cultural barriers. It's like, oh, we can't do this because of X, or you know, we're not allowed to do that because of policy. And I think there's a lot of ingrained cultural beliefs of how we can't get things done. So I think that's the toughest thing to change. And
how do you overcome that?
I think it's tough. And I think you know, you can do. There's like a multi. I don't think there's any magic to it. I don't think there's a bulletproof way of doing
areas,
that. Yeah. I think it's number one. It's getting leadership buy-in around, you know, what digital means, what innovation means.
Yeah.
That you can even have leadership buy-in, but unless you have actually people actually understanding, you know, the employees, everybody understanding why it's important. I think taking an experimentation mindset and actually starting small with small teams and small sprints and small problems and really expanding that. And I think it's giving people the freedom and empowering them to try new things is important. And many organizations are fearful of that.
And this is a perfect segue to something I kind of want to talk about, because in the space that we're talking about, you know, one of the things about being innovative and being creative or being disruptive, whatever sense you want to define it, requires change, right? And you just pinpointed a term, fear, right? I almost humorously joke it's like false expectation appearing real, right? If you've heard of that term, and so having that fear and dealing with change are two very difficult things for people, even like personally and professionally as well. How do you deal with change yourself? Because to be in a state where you're constantly thinking of strategy and innovation, you have to.
Well, I think
you know,
I'm not perfect. I'm not like anybody. Like I still have the shirt. I haven't changed it yet. But you know, I think it's just this ability. We talked about it earlier. Just this ability to continuously learn, to be open to new things. And I mean, it's a tough thing to do as you get older. I think it's a tough thing to do. But I think you have to recognize that the world is changing very quickly, and the things that you would think is crazy and wild, you have to be almost accepting to that. It's funny because, like, I was talking to like some folks about popularity and like how popularity has been totally digitized and fractured, and I was explaining to them that that people are making millions of dollars just like playing video games. And that's a thing.
Yeah, South Korea.
And they're like, oh,
huge.
That's great. Like, why would people do that?
Yeah.
Or people are making millions of dollars on unboxing, games. Or unwrapping Easter eggs.
Food reviews.
Or on Instagram and being an IG girl. Like, why are we judging these people because of what? Like, if they're popular in that particular realm, then like, who are we to judge, right? And I think we get so caught up in, well, they're not a doctor, an engineer, they're not an accountant or lawyer or stockbroker, they're not something traditional, so whatever they're doing is like not relevant. But we live in a new world where people are, and this is just an example, where people are doing wild and crazy things, and they're making money with it, so why are we to judge? Like, people diss Kim Kardashian or Kylie Jenner, they're like, oh yeah, they're making a lot of money, but they're not doing anything. Why are they so popular? It's like, listen, the market's the dictating if they're popular or not.
I love it.
Like,
I love that.
Their marketing machines, they're showcasing they're showcasing their lives, exploding their lives, and they're really good at it. So like, who are you to judge?
Yeah. And the last piece is super, super important, because I think everybody is so quick to judge, but what's funny to me is like, well, okay, open up Kim Kardashian's Instagram, 100+ million followers, right? Well, you just made that very important distinction. You're like, well, if you're annoyed by it, but hold on, just take a step back and understand that the market is the one that's validating whether or not she should be successful.
Exactly.
And so you can't really, I mean, if you blame yourself, that's hypocritical in a sense. And you might not be a sort of supporter or a fan, but 100+ million people are.
Totally.
And so don't really sort of be quick to judge before you can even claim that.
And that's the thing, that we're so quick to judge, and because we don't understand, we have no, because the world is exponential.
Yeah.
We don't even know what's relevant, what's popular.
Yeah.
Like even somebody playing in the innovation space, if you talk to me about like the specifics and the details of what's happening in like biometrics, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Why? You know what I mean? Like there's so much stuff happening because of the internet, and that we shouldn't be judging anything.
Yeah.
Like I think there's
it's I think the actual term in psychology, it's like willful blindness.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're willfully blind to the things that you don't know, and because you don't know them, they're sort of outside of the box of comfort that you hold. You know, and because you don't understand it, you can't resonate.
Yeah.
And so you deem it unfit for your ideology. But that's very untrue. You know, if you look 10, 12 years ago, there's often a joke that says like entrepreneurship was equivalent to being self-employed. Or unemployed, really.
Sure.
You know, but today entrepreneurship is the most romanticized term.
It's like that. Those are
It's
the
the
new
sexy
rock
thing,
stars.
right? And even like, dude, if I told my cousins or my family members that you can monetize on YouTube, my mom would have a heart attack. You know, I often
Totally,
say that it's true, but it's a different world we play in.
And that's why I have so much respect for the people that actually went outside of their comfort zone.
Yes.
And they became e-gamers or ballerinas.
Yeah, why not?
Or like, you know, I think that's really inspiring. And those are the people that actually inspire me. The people that are actually going for legacy, and the people that are actually doing things outside of their comfort zone and doing things that they're passionate and they love. Because I think once you find the things that you're good at and the things that you're passionate about with the things that the market really wants, that's the most dangerous place in the world.
Yeah, and you can't be so emotional to your product. You talked a bit about this earlier, but you're like I'm constantly trying to destroy my product. It was a term that you're using, right? If you have a startup, constantly destroy your idea to figure out how you can make it better. And you can't be so emotional to what you're doing, whether it's yourself or the outcomes of the things you're doing. Because if the market, for example, isn't receiving what you're doing well, you have two choices. You can't just complain about it. You either stop what you're doing if it really doesn't have merit, or figure out a way to pivot and make it better, and make it a way such that the market actually wants to listen or view.
And it's very tough to do. You know, a great example is Netflix. You know, the toughest decision that Reed Hastings ever made as a CEO of Netflix is when they went from the DVD business to the streaming business, and he literally had to kick out the DVD team from the main management meeting at Netflix because they weren't open to the new technologies that were coming out. And by the way, the DVD team is responsible for all the revenue and profit at the organization. That's a fucking hard thing to do.
Yeah.
You're kicking out the entire team that's responsible for all the revenue and the profit in your meeting because they're not open to new technology. Yo, that takes balls. Tons of the balls. That's crazy.
That's true.
That's like saying like, oh, like all these people that are making me successful, take them out of the meeting because they're not open to like the new tech. That's crazy, and I love it.
Yeah, you know what's funny about Netflix too? I kind of want to make this point is, like they started off first, just obviously with their streaming service, but in the beginning, in the very early days.
No, now they're the streaming service.
Now they're streaming service, but in their early days, what they were doing is kind of like, I think people felt a bit limited, like not a huge selection of videos and TV shows, and they're like, all right, let's see what's going to happen. When I think Netflix originals came out, people were like, oh.
Totally.
Like, what is this? Like, beautiful production, amazing actors, not always the ones that you really know about or the ones that are most famous. Most recently, though, with a movie like Bright with Will Smith, that opened a huge gateway. I don't know if people really sort of saw the micro in that, but you're really taking something like a traditional movie and you're plugging it into Netflix with a legitimate actor, a huge famous celebrity, really, in Will Smith, right?
Totally, and I think they did that. I think that's why you're seeing them spend billions and billions and billions of dollars onto content, because that is sort of the next gateway for them, and they keep on coming up with new ways of gaining market share and relevance, and it's
and they're kind of tapping into the YouTube thing. If you saw recently, we were talking about that show where they get in the car and they start singing and stuff. Those sort of small snippets. They're doing that now on Netflix too. They have like a bunch of maybe 10 to 20 minute segments where they're doing these small interviews, so it's kind of interesting. One of the few questions I also wanted to ask is, even just talking about Will Smith, is the whole generational difference too. I think like everybody's so quick to plug in people in different generations, like, oh, millennials, Gen Z, or millennials are entitled, or baby boomers can't be innovative or creative, or whatever. You see Will Smith, even someone like Gary Vee, I mean, they're not millennials, but like Will Smith recently just gets a camera, busts it down, starts vlogging. Like, that was super left field, and I don't think people expected that. And he's doing extremely well. Dude, his Instagram blew up to like 10 million in like 2-3 weeks. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, at the end of the day, Will Smith is like one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
He's got
Love
talent.
him as an actor. Yeah.
Listen, he's got talent.
Charisma. And,
he's got charisma. He's got content. Like, he's got talent. Talent will always surface on the internet. That's why a guy like you know, with your charisma, with your swagger, like,
I appreciate
buddy,
you, bro.
the talent's just gonna come through, right? You know, people are gonna watch this in 10 years and say, you know, they're gonna see it. They're gonna be like, George has been on the tip the whole time. And I think,
thank you.
You know, I think talent just overcomes everything. You know, you need a little bit of, you need a platform, you need a network,
of course,
to make it happen.
And that comes with time and practice.
That's why a guy like Will Smith, I think he's an anomaly. I don't think you can. He's just one of the greatest of all time, man.
Yeah.
And I think a guy like him could be successful. Like, I think, again, like, he's one of the guys that sort of transcends culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, he crosses so many different generations because of his movies, his shows, his talent. But I think that if you take the other approach, you can actually build building a small niche in a particular area and breaking through the noise there is equally as impressive.
Yeah.
And I think people should be focusing on that first.
Yes.
Rather than doing the Will Smith style, because of course, it's Will Smith.
Yeah. And also, I mean, process over product, right? Be patient, you know, really trust in yourself and everything you do. And this is why, like, legacy over likes, I love that term, is because if you're going for likes, like, dude, I'll put up a YouTube video, and if it gets like 100 views, I'll be so, like, you know, sort of happy with it, because I know those 100 views, at least hopefully I can bring value to. And so it's not like you do just one video and you're like, oh, I didn't get 1 million views and tomorrow I quit. You know, so it requires persistence, and I think a lot of people don't see what maybe Will Smith had to do, despite obviously having certain characteristics and personality traits that led to him being successful, but the hard work that measured up to it. Yeah. I think that's very commendable in anybody. So, on that topic, last question.
Last question.
Episode 20 of Let's Grab Coffee, all right? Shawn, I need 1, 2, maybe 3, all right, if you guys are lucky, tips, how to be successful, what someone should do, some advice, some things maybe that you learned. What can you leave us with?
I think, think about, if you're waking up in the morning, if you're watching this, think about how you can take yourself out of the job today. Think about how you can actually get yourself fired today by taking a risk. And you know what you will do is, if you try something like that, other than punching somebody in the face, if you try something like that, you will notice that nothing will happen. You will push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and you actually might make a massive impact to what you are doing. So my advice is, try to get yourself fired at work today.
Wow. All right. Thanks so much, my man. I appreciate it.
This is awesome. Thank you so much,
guys. Shawn Kanungo. I'm going to have all the stuff in the YouTube description box below, just where you can check him out, where you can connect. Trust me, Shawn is going to be tremendous person to be connected with, someone that you should continue to follow and learn from.
No, this guy, let me tell you, listen, you know, there's not many people on, there's not many people that can be as good on video, as natural as this guy, and I know this, because I'm good on video.
And that means a lot coming from you, man.
This guy is going to be one of the greatest of all time. So make sure that you watch this video, and in 10 years you reference this back, because this is the prediction that I'm making right now, that this guy will be one of the greatest of all time.
Man, that means a lot, dude. Thank you so much. Shawn Kanungo, episode 20. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.